Om Stapakaya ca dharmasya Sarvadharmaswarupine Stapakaya ca dharmasya Sarvadharmaswarupine Avatara Varisthaya Ramakrishna Yate Rama Asato Vasadgamaya Tamaso Vajotirgamaya Mrityomamritangamaya Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Let us offer our salutations to Sri Ramakrishna, the embodiment of all religions, the Supreme God Incarnate. Let us pray to Him to lead us from unreal to real, to lead us from the darkness of ignorance to the light of knowledge, to lead us from death to immortality. Today's topic: one gets what one deserves. So how to know in what manner we deserve what we are getting? Who will be really acting in such impartial way so that everyone gets his share, whatever is due? And that impartial person, our scriptures declare, is that invisible force which we call as God. In our own lives, if we deserve something better, then we obtain something better. If we deserve something still better, then things change and we get something still better. It is what we do to ourselves, how we work upon ourselves, that ultimately decides what will be obtained by us. Some natural laws have been provided by the Divine Supreme. So everything goes according to the law of nature. Proper understanding of action is important so that we can do actions properly and deserve what we should get. We always do actions in three manners: bodily, verbally, and mentally. In other words, deeds, words, and thoughts. We believe that we will get bad results if we do evil actions, and we'll get good results if we do good actions. We are assured that we will have due effects of what we have done or deserved at present or in the present life, whether good or bad. This is the true fact of nature. We are, of course, conditioned by the law of nature. We can't avoid the natural conditions. Nature eternally governs everything. Nature creates men and the universe. Nature shows us what truth actually is and what things are going to be on time after time, day after day, year after year, life after life. If we say truth, it must be always true by itself in nature. For example, earth has the element of hardness or softness in nature. Water, the element of liquidity, air, the element of motion, and fire, the element of heat. These natural elements, since time immemorial, has existed forever and ever, and changing all the time from one form to another. These primary elements are usually existent in the past, they are still obviously existent in the present, and will also certainly be existent in their intrinsic nature, in their intrinsic quality. In exactly the same way, the actions and reactions are cause and effect, or activity and its result are really in existence for all time and everywhere. If we can really see and understand the real work of nature, it's very clear that there is no other person or being who governs or orders nature to do something, this or that, or good or bad. Here we see that we act ourselves with our own intention or volition, whether good or bad. So the actions done by oneself are not entirely concerned with any other person or being, but depend only on oneself to be good or bad, or to get reward or to commit sins. The common saying is quite true, that good begets good and bad begets bad. This true principle or theory was taught by the enlightened Buddha over 2500 years ago. He said in his teachings, by oneself doing evil, one defiles oneself. By oneself doing good, one purifies oneself. Purity and impurity are dependent only on oneself. No one purifies another. It is quite natural that in the whole universe, if there is a cause, there must be an effect, which is exactly produced by the very cause. Without a cause, there can never arise any effect. In reality, the law of cause and effect is eternally in existence in the whole universe. It is obvious that an immutable law of nature provides that there is a cause, there must be an effect, and conversely an effect cannot be produced without a cause. Actually, nothing can happen in the whole world without foundation of either cause or effect. That's the reality. As soon as a cause has been done, due effect necessarily comes into being as a result. In other words, when a cause has been performed at the first moment and passed away instantaneously at the very next, then the effect immediately comes into being again as its consequence, and by itself passes away in a state of constant flux. As such, there is nothing that can escape from the process of cause and effect. That is, a cause produces an effect, and the effect arises just dependent on the cause. Sometimes our actions, certain actions, they bear immediate fruit. Immediately we feel the effect of the actions we have done. To give one example, there was a news item recently which happened in America. One person saw in his home, I forget the address, everything is given there. He saw a mice moving around. He was so disgusted, which made him brutal. What had happened just before that, he had put some old leaves and garbage and set fire onto it. When he saw the mice inside the home, he became so angry. Somehow he caught hold of it and threw it into the garbage where the fire was being set. And the mouse was so panic-stricken. And it's true, its body was burnt, but it jumped out of terrible fear and anguish. It jumped back to the home from where it was thrown. And its tail was still burning with fire. And that caught fire. The house caught fire. It is unbelievable that the whole house was burnt down by that fire. It's a solid news. It is not a fiction. So, what I mean to say is, it's not that we did something recent past. We may feel the effect later on or after many births and so on. In certain cases, they bear fruit immediately. And this is the case where the effect is felt immediately. The same thing we saw in Srimad Ramayana. In his younger days, Dashrath shot an arrow on a person who was taking the water in a pitcher, thinking it was an animal. But the damage was done. He was a Rishiputra. The arrow pierced in his heart and he had to give up his body. And when the blind parents of this sage came to know the fact, they pronounced that the person who shot the arrow will also meet with terrible grief at the time of separation. And so the story goes, when Rama was asked to go to forest for 14 years, Dashrath could not bear the separation of Rama. He felt terribly grieved and pained at heart. And just before passing away, he reminded of what foolish action he did inadvertently in his boyhood days, which paved the effect right now that he was suffering from. In exactly the same way, action, that is a thing or an action done by a person mentally or verbally or bodily, must inevitably produce reaction as a consequence. The action is the same as the cause. The reaction is the effect. Each and every one of us has these three actions with which activities are done, motivated by volition. In other words, without volition, no action can be done either. If a person has done an action either good or bad, intentionally or unintentionally, he has to reap the reaction good or bad according as the force of his own action. It's a plain fact that one naturally deserves what one has accumulated by one's own action, good or bad. This is the reaction of his own action. It's a natural and scientific law of the universe that whosoever does any good or bad action will surely have the consequence of good or bad reaction. As an old proverb says, as we sow, so shall we reap. Similarly, there is a Buddhist saying, a tree will bear fruits according as its seed, whether bitter, sweet or sour. Quite simply, we can expect only the result of what one has done and will also have the result from what one is doing or acting here at the present. Good produces good and evil produces evil. That's the law of nature. And this law has been prescribed by the invisible force, which I already mentioned. That invisible force is none other than God Himself. So it therefore wholly depends upon how one cultivates one's own actions of good or bad during one's lifetime. And one is certain to reap the consequent result of reaction somewhere in this life or in the lives to come. A seed is something like the cause or action, and the effect or reaction is like the fruit borne by the tree. What we reap at present or today is what we have sown in the past during this life or lives in the long past. And we shall also have to reap what we are sowing here at present or today. As there are three tenses of time, past, present and future, or yesterday, today and tomorrow, so also there must be past and future births of existences, and as we do exist in the present. So we are indeed existent in the cycle of cause and effect, or action and reaction. In reality, we are just at the instance of existence in the rounds of moral and immoral volition. Since it is one's own doing or reacting on oneself. Therefore it is not necessary to depend on any other being. Quite obviously, one's experience in enjoyment or anguish is the resultant outcome of what one has done by one's thought or word or deed, either good or bad. This is called karma in Buddhism, a law in itself, a law of universal truth and a law of ultimate reality. It operates in its own field without any intervention of external independent ruling agency. It is a force or energy of one's own volition by which one acts with one's thought or word or deed, either good or bad, performing various kinds of activities and at the same time acquiring resultant effects in consequence. So Buddhist karma in a plain sense means action or doing. Strictly speaking, karma in the ultimate sense of the term means all moral and immoral volition. It is neither the conception of fatalism nor determinism. It is rather a dynamic energy, always vibrating upwards and downwards, according to one's own volitional activities done as good or bad. With regard to karma formation in Buddhism, there are only three phenomena, namely wholesome state, unwholesome state, and neither wholesome nor unwholesome states. The states here mean one's own volition or tendency, which motivates one to carry out an action of thoughts or words or deeds. And Buddhism here attributes that one's action is one's own, one's inheritance, one's cause, one's kinsman, one's refuge. If one does either good or bad, one is the heir of that action. It means that one is completely responsible for oneself, none else. That's the substance. Proper understanding of action and reaction or cause and effect is called right understanding of the true nature of karma formation as it is. Thus we can see that action is a real cause which engenders in each and every one the various status, the various inequalities that exist among mankind. What are in this present stage is not because of some other reasons or beings, but because of our own volitional activities. Such being the case, from the Buddhist standpoint, the differences of our mentality, intellects, temperament, and say all kinds of equalities in our present age are due to our own actions and tendencies, our volitional activities both in the past and present. Within the context of Hindu Dharma, our spiritual culture and the direct experience of our ancients it is always said that the Almighty Universal Spirit, the Supreme Lord, God, is a Kalpataru, wish-fulfilling tree, Kamadhenu, the divine cow who fulfills all wishes, is Chintamani, the divine pearl which gives everything. Devotees also praise him by addressing him with heartfelt gratitude. You are the Vanchita Phala Pradayaka. You are the one who bestows whatsoever is wished for. But then there is something significant in this saying. They say, Vanchita Phala Pradayaka. Phala means fruit. A fruit is something that has been worked for diligently over months and years. A seed has been sown, it has been watered, carefully tended to and nurtured. It has been fenced in and protected. And when all that is necessary has been done, then it yields fruits. They did not say that he bestows whatsoever object is wished for. Rather, whatsoever fruit is wished for. Whatsoever fruit has been desired by an individual soul, immediately he gives it. Whatsoever fruit. A fruit is something that has been worked for. That's very important to note. You have to work for it. That means that God ever readily bestows that which one desires and then deserves. Having worked for that which has been desired. Sri Ramakrishna got the vision of the Divine Mother, not by doing nothing. He worked for it. He practiced intense discipline, austerities for 12 long years and followed strict discipline. By so doing, finally, he got the vision of the Divine Mother. You must have supreme, sublime desires, highest aspirations, the noblest spiritual ambitions. All are very good. But you must back them up with patient, diligent self-effort. What we call Purushartha, Abhyasa, practice. Through such earnest exertion, you will deserve. And when thus you have desired, aspired nobly, and worked diligently, God then becomes to you Kamadhenu, Kalpataru and Chintamani. But please note, initial stage, you have to work for it. Simply sitting idle, you get nothing. Therefore, our aspirations, lofty desires should be backed up by the patient, sincere and earnest living of a life conducive and favorable for the fulfillment of these desires. The spiritual teacher says, everything is possible. Nothing is impossible provided you deserve it. You work for it. Desire and then deserve. desire and then deserve. Desire becomes fulfilled. And the very fact that God or Providence or the Supreme Reality has put a spark of such desire in every heart, has put a spark of aspiration in heart, is itself proof positive that you are meant for great things. It is itself enough sign that God intends to shower upon you supreme blessedness. Otherwise, out of millions and billions of human beings wandering deluded upon the surface of this earth, why should He choose a few, call them and endow them with this aspiration? You can count these few on your fingertips, whereas millions grope in darkness and are quite satisfied wallowing in this mire of samsara, that is worldliness. They feel comfortable and rejoice, thinking that they are quite all right. When such is the prevailing condition of humanity, how is it, why is it that you have been called, pulled, made to go in a different direction and been given ideas and aspirations, higher noble ambitions in this direction? Why? Because as the Bible says, you are chosen. God has some special intention. A few strive for perfection out of countless millions of people. Lord Krishna also tells the same thing in the Bhagavad Gita. Manushyanam sahasreshu kasya jadasiddhaye. Among thousands of people, one perchance strives for perfection. And do you not realize that you belong to that few? Do you not realize this? And therefore do you not feel that having been chosen, belonging to this elite few, this microscopic little group, there is a great privilege and honor bestowed upon you by the Supreme, a great chance and opportunity. And therefore, do you not feel that you must prove yourself worthy of this that has been offered? Where there is a will, there is a way to obtain whatever is worthwhile obtaining, to reach whatever goal and supreme objective we have set for ourselves. All things yield and become favorable to a soul that has willed it, determined it, and with determination proceeds to work for his high ideals. Obstacles may be many, difficulties may be many. That's the order of the day in this imperfect world of Maya and the three gunas, sattva, rajas and tamas. It is not all sattva. It is rajas and tamas also. It is not that the scriptures have misled us or have kept hidden from us the facts of life, the truths about this samsara. No. They have been very, very, very honest, outspoken, frank, truthful, and unambiguous with us. They have put before us all that is negative, all that is to be encountered. They have not deceived us. They have said, no, it is not very easy. But then they have also said, the most difficult can be rendered very easy if you have the wish and the will for it. That is the thing desirable, the one thing desirable. For if the Supreme Reality is Kamadhenu Kalpataru Chintamani, Vanchita Phalapradayaka, if He is that, which He undoubtedly is, and more, then we have to be like a Nachiketa, or a Savitri, or a Prahlad, a Meera, or a Bhagirath. These are all famous examples who showed by their determination, by their Purushartha, how they got what they wanted, how they got what they deserved. Because where there is a will, there is surely a way. This then is the truth upon which we should base our life, the living of our life, and the activities of our life. There are four categories of people: Tapasvi, Maharshi, Brahmarshi and Rajarshi. And each one, depending on his background and capability, was following a certain code of dharma. There was a rishi by the name Shami. By his attainments, he was a Brahmarshi. He had a son by the name Shringi, who was a Tapasvi. Brahmarshi Shami knew all about Brahman and was living in a state of equanimity and equal-mindedness. He used to take pain and pleasure, sorrow and joy, blame and praise with the same attitude and was unmoved by events. He was meeting them with the same detachment. He was not perturbed by any actions, by any circumstances. He had several disciples, and along with them he was immersed in the study of the philosophy of non-dualism. He was living in a state of total surrender to God and was enjoying the bliss of divinity. His son Shringi was also a great individual, but he could not be like his father. He could be called only a tapasvi. He did not have the ability to discriminate between things, although he was a person with great strength. On one occasion, he lost his equanimity due to anger, and because of that impulse of anger, he cursed King Parikshit, who was a great Rajarshi. Here we find two types of faults. A fault committed with full knowledge will cause a great deal of harm to the world. On the other hand, a fault committed accidentally and without full knowledge will cause harm to the individual only, but not to the world. Parikshit was a great king who was in a state of total devotion and surrender to God. He committed a mistake unknowingly, and so the consequence was to affect only him and would not bother others. His mistake was committed unknowingly and without a bad motive. At this act of Parikshit's, Shringi lost control over himself and gave a curse to Parikshit. This curse, coming as it did under such circumstances, caused a great deal of harm to the entire kingdom. It is not easy to describe the exact nature of the Bhagavata, a supreme devotee of God. It can cater to the average person, to the seeker of truth, and also to the highest intellectual. Bhagavat has the ability to cater to everyone. A mango tree can give you only mangoes. A lime tree can give you only lemons. But Bhagavat can give everything to all its seekers, depending on the latter's desires and yearnings. An example is given. There was a very wealthy businessman. Once he went abroad. He had 4 wives, and he wrote letters to each of them asking what they wanted him to bring when he returned home. Generally people ask when they go out, what shall we bring for you? Like that they ask. It's quite natural. In reply, the eldest wife wrote that she would be very happy if he returned home safely and in good health. That's all she wanted. The second wife replied, she would like to have some medicines that would help her get over her illness. The third wife was always interested in reading some spiritual texts, and so she wrote that she would like to have spiritual texts belonging to the country where he had gone. The fourth wife had very mundane qualities, and she asked the husband to bring back some saris and jewels of the latest fashion. So 4 categories. All the letters reached the husband, and he brought all the items needed, what everyone desired. He was able to give them what they deserved. So he gave medicines to his second wife, spiritual texts to the third wife, saris and jewels to the fourth wife, and himself sat in the residence of the first wife. This made the other 3 wives very jealous. Then the wealthy individual, the man of wisdom, he explained that as the eldest wife only wanted him, he went to her, and as the others had material requests, he gave them various items as per their requests. In a similar manner, we may imagine that Paramatman has 4 wives by the names Arthi, Artharthi, Jignasi and Jnani. This idea has been explained in the Bhagavad Gita by Lord Krishna. The Lord satisfies the requirements of each of the first 3, Arthi, Artharthi, Jignasi. He himself sits in the heart of the Jnani. Paramatma will give you the fruit of your work and not the work itself. Depending on your karma and your deservedness and your prayers, God gives you the fruit of your action. In many ways, Bhagavad, this great scripture, the famous scripture, it teaches us lessons of great importance. On one occasion, even Kuchela, a great devotee of Lord Krishna, he was doubting. He thought that although Krishna was his childhood friend, as later he became a very rich and powerful king, Krishna may not even recognize him. That doubt was in his mind. He was very agitated. However, Kuchela's wife never had such doubt. And so she encouraged him to go and see Krishna. See him, who has a very broad mind and would not forget his friends. God is such that he will give value to one's own mind and purity of character. He will not give any value to external appearances. After passing through such doubts and several tribulations, Kuchela entered Krishna's mansion. Lord Krishna welcomed him heartily and honored him. Even without being asked, Lord Krishna gave a lot of material wealth and a lot of grace to Kuchela. The moment God's grace spreads, one will even forget his own desires. After this, Kuchela returned to his own home, and to his great surprise, Kuchela found his poor home transformed into a big mansion. He explained to his wife how Krishna looked after him and said, he received me as if he was longing to meet me. And he showed such kindness that he appeared as kindness and compassion personified. He accepted a small quantity of parched rice from poor Kuchela and gave us this large mansion. If you give the Lord even a small quantity, He returns it back several fold. If you are willing to take at least one step forward, God will take 10 steps towards you to receive you. Only when you direct your vision towards God, can He direct His vision towards you. If you are looking in some other direction, what's the use even if God looks at you? For example, when you are right in front of me, you can look into my eyes and I can look into your eyes. If you are far away and are looking in a different direction, how can I look at you and how can you look at me? Krishna was one who always directed his vision towards his devotees. And Bhagavad is the story of Krishna. This Bhagavad describes how Krishna gave supreme bliss to different gopikas by appearing before each of them in a form which each liked most, according to what they want. He thus demonstrated that the diversity of forms is indeed the unity of God. Thus Bhagavata tells us about the oneness which we should see in this diversity. The story is full of love and will give you the contents in a manner in which you can assimilate the same. So it all depends upon your mental makeup and what exactly you are aspiring for. That's the meaning of telling one gets what one deserves. There's another famous episode in the Upanishad. You're all well familiar of this. There is the teaching, da. It's a very famous incident. Da means Dhamma, da also means Dana, da also means Daya. So da means Dhamma, Dana, Daya. R starts with D, da. So first one, Dhamma means self-control. Dana means charity, give. To give is Dana. Daya means compassion. 3 classes of Prajapati's sons lived a life of celibacy as students with their father Prajapati. The students are the gods, men and demons. The gods, on the completion of their term, requested the teacher, spiritual master Prajapati, "Sir, please instruct us." Prajapati told them just one syllable, da. Go and meditate and come and report to me what you felt. The gods did and then said, "Sir, we have understood. You have told us to control ourselves. Control. Self-control." Prajapati said, "Well, we have understood." Then the second class of people, the human beings, they also came and requested Prajapati to instruct them. Prajapati told them the same syllable, da, and asked them, go and meditate and then report to me what you have understood. After some time they came back and said, sir, we have understood. You told us to give charity. Then Brahma said, correct, you have understood. Then the third class of people, demons or asuras, they came. They also wanted instruction. Prajapati told them the same syllable da and asked them to go and meditate. And then after some time they came back and reported, sir, we have understood. You have told us to be compassionate. Prajapati said, correct, you have understood. That very thing is repeated by the spiritual master. The cloud, it has been repeated by the heavenly voice, the cloud, through the thunders, and have compassion. Therefore, one should learn these three: self-control, charity, and compassion. The gods are the inhabitants of happy regions in the heavens. They gain those regions as their rewards for leading meritorious and virtuous lives. For them, the pursuit of pleasure becomes the business of life. Unless they avail themselves of the superior opportunity available there to attain the knowledge of Brahman, they would have dissipated all their acquired merits and virtues in indulgence of the senses, as they would have to start again at the human level. And they would have to start again at the human level when that merit is exhausted. So for the gods, a pleasure of the flesh was the temptation, and the control of the senses was their ally. Men are generally avaricious, selfish. Therefore, Brahma told them to have charitable heart. So, to give ability, time, wealth, service, etc. Demons are generally cruel and given to injuring others. So they lack compassion. Therefore, the demons should learn about compassion and practice compassion. Daya. So that means what we strongly aspire for, that we deserve to get. That's the lesson. There is another episode which I would like to tell you. The assembly of gods once met and decided to appoint a person to the position of Lord of Death, the official title being Lord Yama. They selected the most righteous person for this post. His duty was to escort man at the proper time upon death to the celestial regions. There is a person by the name Amrit living on earth. He thought to himself that the one thing he feared most was death. So he hit upon a bright idea that if he befriended the Lord of Death, then maybe death can be kept at distance. So Amrit practiced austerities, practiced concentration, and Lord Yama was pleased and granted a vision to him. Then the Lord Yama said, I know by the aid of my divine powers that you seek to befriend me. Your wish has come true. My presence is only available to those upon whose deaths my messengers are. I take their souls to my domain. Those that are born must die, and those who die will be born again. This is the eternal law. No one can escape death. Yet I grant you my vision while you are still living. Amrita said, as a token of our friendship, I ask this favor of you. If death is inevitable, I ask that if I am to die, then at least let me know beforehand of the time when my end is to come, so that I can make proper provision for my family before departure. Very valid. Lord Yama said, sure, this is a simple matter. I shall certainly inform you beforehand. But as soon as you get the message, please set about making the preparations. With these words, Lord Yama, that is the Lord of Death, vanished. Many years passed. Amrita's hair began gradually to turn grey. But he was living happily with not a thought about the fear of death. His life was full of sensual pleasures and enjoyments. He did not look forward to receiving any correspondence from his friend Lord Yama. And he was pleased that so far no letters had arrived from the Lord of Death. Some more years passed by. By this time, Amrit had lost most of his teeth, but he was living without any worries about death or dying. Still no letters had arrived from his friend, the Lord of Death. As years rolled by, Amrita's eyesight became dimmer. How step by step, old age is catching up with me, he thought. But I am thankful that my friend Yama has still not sent any letter addressed to me. I know that my friend, Lord Yama, always keeps his promise. He will surely send a message beforehand. Some more years passed by. Amrit was now an old man who could not stand straight up, with his back bent forward. He could not walk without the support of a walking stick. His skin was all wrinkled. One day, he suffered a stroke and became paralyzed. People said his condition was very critical. But Amrit was still in a happy frame of mind. As long as his friend Lord Yama had not sent any letter, the thought of death and dying never entered his mind. Then the inevitable happened. Lord Yama, the god of death, entered the room. Amrit was startled and his mind was seized with fear. Lord Yama said, my friend, come now. You have suffered greatly. Today I have come to take you with me. Amrit was trembling with extreme fear. He said, alas, you have betrayed me. You have not kept your word. You did not send any letter to me. You have now come with your fearful form to take me away. Are you not thus deceiving a friend? Lord Yama replied, O man, you spent all your life in shameless sense indulgence. Now you cast aspersions on me, the Lord of Justice. Pleasures and enjoyments made you blind. How then could you know the letters I sent you? Not one, but 4 letters did I send to you. But you heed them not. Amrita was greatly puzzled. 4 letters did you say? But not one reached me. It is just possible that they may have gone astray in the post. Lord Yama said, with all your cleverness, you are fool enough to think that I would take a pen and paper to write letters to you. O deluded mortal, time is my messenger who brought my messages to you. Now take your mind back in time and recollect years ago. Your hair turned grey. That was my first letter. You did not heed my message, but blackened your hair with dye. My second letter reached you when your teeth began to fall out. Then too you took no warning, but got yourself a set of false teeth. My third letter was sent to you when your eyesight failed. The fourth message was when your body became paralyzed. Amrita said, "Oh no, I have grievously erred. I have made a mistake. Unforgivable is my error. Yet, once more, I crave your indulgence." Lord Yama replied, "Indulgence? What more indulgence is there for me to give? What use did you make of the priceless opportunity bestowed on you, of the gift of this human birth? Sensual indulgence and drunkenness. With these you have wasted your life. Wasting this precious human life, fie on you. Now you shamelessly ask for more time? Time for what?" Amrit said, "O friend, remember our past friendship. Please recall those days now and bestow on me one more chance." Lord Yama said, "That friendship was of that time. Now it is done. I come neither as friend nor as foe. I come as the dispenser of the granite law. This law is above love and above hatred. This law is just, true and impartial. No human servitor am I, who for gifts or money would from duty's path swerve. My course is straight and true to the end. I carry out the stern dictates of destiny. All mortals have to bend to my final mandate. This is the divine law. Now let us go." Lord Yama, the god of death, puts the noose over the dying man's neck. The man begins to gasp and then chokes. An agonized expression fills his face. People said, "Amrit is dead." The wheel of life moves on. It is overwhelmed by decrepitude and grief, and it has diseases and calamities for its progeny. That wheel relates in time and place. Day and night are the rotations of that wheel. It is characterized by production and destruction going on ceaselessly. And once time comes, one cannot escape. There is none dear or hateful to time. Youth, beauty, life, possessions, health, and the companionship of friends, all are unstable. From the Mahabharata, there is a famous, very interesting episode. Addressing Yudhishthira, Bhishma relates the conversation between a Brahmana and his son. The son said, "What should a wise man do, seeing that the period of human life is passing away so very quickly? Death is that by which the world is assailed. Decrepitude encompasses it. Those irresistible things that come and go away are the nights that are continually lessening the period of human life. When I know that death tarries for none, but approaches steadily towards every creature, how can I pass my time without covering myself with the garb of knowledge? When each succeeding night Passing away lessens the allotted period of one's existence. The man of wisdom should regard the day to be fruitless. When death is approaching steadily, who is there that would, like a fish in a shallow water, feel happy? Death comes to a man before his desires have been gratified. Death snatches away a person when he is engaged in plucking flowers, and when his heart is otherwise set, like a tigress bearing away a ram. Do thou this very day accomplish that which is for thy good. Let not this death come to thee. Death drags its victims before their acts are accomplished. The acts of tomorrow should be done today. Those of the afternoon in the forenoon. Death does not wait to see whether the acts of its victim have all been accomplished or not. Who knows that death will not come to him even today? In prime of age, one should betake oneself to the practice of virtue. Life is transitory. If virtue is practiced, fame here and felicity hereafter will be the consequences. Overwhelmed by ignorance, one is ready to exert oneself for sons and families. Achieving virtuous or vicious acts, one brings them up and aggrandizes them. Like a tiger bearing away a sleeping deer, death snatches away a man addicted to the gratification of desires and engaged in the enjoyment of sons and animals. Before he has been able to pluck the flowers upon which he has set his heart, before he has been gratified by the acquisition of the objects of his desire, death bears him away like a tiger bearing away its prey. Death overpowers a person while the latter is still in the midst of the happiness that accrues from the gratification of desire. And while still thinking, this has been done, this is to be done, this has been half done, death bears away the man, however designed according to his profession, attached to his field, his shop or his home, before he has obtained the fruit of his acts. Death bears away the weak, the strong, the brave, the timid, the idiotic, and the learned, before any of these obtains the fruits of his acts. When death, decrepitude, disease, and sorrow, arising from diverse causes, are all residing in thy body, how is it that you live as if you are perfectly hale? As soon as a creature is born, decrepitude and death pursue him for his destruction. All living beings, mobile and immobile, are affected by these two. The attachment that one feels for dwelling in villages and towns, in the midst of Philemon, is said to be the very mouth of death. The forest, on the other hand, is regarded as the fold within which the senses may be penned. This is declared by the Shrutis, scriptures. The attachment a person feels for dwelling in a village or the town is like a cord that binds him effectually. They that are good break that cord and attain emancipation, while they that are wicked do not succeed in breaking them. He who never injures living creatures by thought, word or deed is never injured by such agencies as are destructive of life and property. Nothing can resist the messengers of disease and decrepitude, of death, when they advance except truth which devours untruth. In truth is morality. In truth is immortality. For these reasons one should practice the vow of truth. One should devote oneself to a union with the truth. One should accept truth for one's Veda and restraining one's senses. One should vanquish the destroyer by truth. Both immortality and death are planted in the body. One comes to death through ignorance and loss of judgment, while immortality is achieved through truth. I shall therefore abstain from injury and seek to achieve truth, and transgressing the sway of desire and wrath, regard pleasure and pain with an equal eye, and attaining tranquility, avoid death like an immortal. Upon the advent of that season, when the sun will progress towards the north, I shall, restraining my senses, set to the performance of the Shanti sacrifice, the Brahma sacrifice, the mind sacrifice, and the work sacrifice. Shanti is tranquility. The Shanti sacrifice is the endeavor to practice self-denial in everything. In other words, to restrain all sorts of propensities or inclinations. The Brahma sacrifice is reflection on truths laid down in the Upanishads. The word sacrifice consists in the silent japa of the Omkara, the initial mantra. The mind sacrifice is the contemplation of the Supreme Soul. The work sacrifice consists in baths, cleanliness, and waiting upon preceptor. That person whose words, thoughts, penances, renunciation and yoga, meditation all rest in Brahma, succeeds in earning the highest good. There is no eye that is equal to the eye of knowledge. There is no penance like that involved in truth. There is no sorrow equal to that involved in attachment. There is no happiness that which is obtainable from renunciation. Old age, like the dreaded tiger, stands threatening at your door. Beauty fades. Wrinkles appear on the face and mar the beauty. Hairs become grey. Teeth become shaky and fall. Body bends forward. Knowledge of God is the only remedy to destroy both old age, death and disease. So, we should aspire for realizing this truth. And then we should work for it. When we work for it, we really mean what we want. When that is determined properly, then we get what we deserve. Thank you very much. Om Sahana Bhavatu Sahano Bhunaktu Sahaviryam Karavavahai Tejasvinavadhitamastu ma vidvishavahai. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Hari Om Tat Sat. May the Lord protect us, may He nourish us, may we not be fruitful and enlightened, may we not hate each other. Peace, peace, peace be unto all.